Westminster is a community of Christians that exist to make disciples of Jesus Christ and influence the Delta for the glory of God. This is our mission, the very reason we exist. To help us better understand where we are heading as a church, it helps to understand where we've been. In the year 30 AD, Jesus Christ was crucified, died, and was resurrected on the third day. 40 days later, Jesus ascended into heaven, and then 10 days after that, the disciples received the Holy Spirit. In 31 AD, Stephen was stoned to death, becoming the first Christian martyr. In 34 AD, Saul ceased persecuting Christians and became a follower of Jesus, changing his name to Paul. Paul and Barnabas were sent on the first missionary journey, at which point faith in Jesus extended beyond Jews to Greek-speaking Gentiles, and more disciples were made. Around 64 AD, Emperor Nero blamed the Great Fire of Rome on Christian followers, initiating the Roman Empire's first persecution of Christians. However, instead of Christians shrinking back, against all odds, they not only persevered, but thrived. And the gospel continued to spread to Eastern Europe, Northern Africa, and Asia. In 595, news of Christ reached modern-day England. In the year 1200, the Bible had been translated into 22 different languages. With the invention of the printing press in 1440, it became possible for commoners to have access to the Bible. This revolution gave birth to theologians who questioned the authority of the Roman Catholic Church, and more disciples were made. In the late 1400s, Pope Alexander VI of Spain wanted to send Catholic missions to the New World. As a result, Christopher Columbus took priests with him on his second voyage to America. The Protestant Reformation began in 1517, when Martin Luther nailed the 95 Theses, a list of 95 grievances against the Catholic Church, onto a church door. Around 20 years later, the theologian John Calvin further refined Reformation thought into what is known today as Reformed theology. Scotsman John Knox took Calvin's teaching back to Scotland. From here, Reformed thinking spread throughout England, Holland, and France, and more disciples were made. The years 1620 to 1640 saw the Puritan migration of English settlers to New England. In 1640, the Southampton, Long Island congregation of the Presbyterian Church was organized. This is thought to be the oldest Presbyterian church in America. The Westminster Confession of Faith was published in 1647. In 1706, the Reverend Francis Makemie, an American immigrant from Ireland, helped organize the first American Presbytery in Philadelphia. Makemie is known as the father of American Presbyterianism. In 1729, the Westminster Confession was adopted as the confessional standard for the American Church. Presbyterianism expanded in Virginia through the organization of the Presbytery at Hanover in 1755. On May 21, 1789, the first General Assembly of the PCUSA met in Philadelphia, and more disciples were made. In 1846, First Presbyterian Church in Greenwood, Mississippi was organized. Originally, the congregation shared a building with the Methodist Church, with each of the two groups taking 2 Sundays a month to lead worship services. These combined worship services continued until 1886. Meanwhile, in December of 1865, the Presbyterian Church in the United States convened its first General Assembly in Macon, Georgia. Back in Greenwood, in 1903, a fire destroyed the Presbyterian Church building. The church location was then moved to the present-day location of First Presbyterian Church on Main Street. In December of 1973, the Presbyterian Church in America was established as a result of opposition to a long-developing theological liberalism. On February 13, 1984, Westminster Presbyterian Church was founded following a Bible study that was led by Dr. Wilson Benton. Over 100 attended the first worship service held in the old train depot, which was led by the Reverend Jack Ross of Brookhaven, Mississippi. Due to overcrowding, the meeting location was soon moved to the LeFlore County Civic Center. Later that year, on November 25th, the old hospital building on River Road was purchased. The next year, in 1985, deacons and elders were elected. In November of the same year, Westminster chose to affiliate with Covenant Presbytery of the Presbyterian Church in America. In December of 1987, the congregation purchased 11.5 acres of undeveloped property on East Park Avenue. In 1988, a fundraising campaign began. Building plans were submitted to the congregation the following year, and in early spring, a groundbreaking was held. Then, the building was completed and dedicated to the glory of God on May 19, 1991. After years of growth and change, in 2012, the Reverend Richard Owens was called as Westminster's 6th senior pastor. Just as the early church was committed to growth and the making of disciples, so Westminster is committed to seeing that more disciples are made.